Good morning, children. I hope all are doing fine. Welcome to Unit 5, Section C, What Katy Did. It's written by Suzanne Coolidge and it's an extract from her own book, What Katy Did. Now let's read and understand about the book. This book, What Katy Did, is about Katy Carr, a girl who intends to be beautiful, beloved, and as sweet as an angel one day. For now, though the hair is usually tangled, her dress is always torn, and she doesn't care at all for being called good. Then a terrible accident happens, and Katy must find the courage to remember her daydreams and the beautiful, delightful plans she had, for when she is grown up, she wants to do something grand. Now let's know about the author, that is Suzanne Coolidge. Suzanne Coolidge lived from the year 1835 to 1905. Her real name was Sarah Chauncey Woolsey. She was a writer from Ohio. She was born in a famous and respected family. After the American Civil War, she turned to writing, and during that war she served as a nurse. Her first book was published in 1871. Now let's read about the main character, that is Katy and her family. Katy lives with her dad and her aunt Izzy. Her dad works so hard so that if the children are not at school, they will stay with Aunt Izzy. When Katy was 8, her mother died. This is why Aunt Izzy looks after them. The children do not like Aunt Izzy very much. Now, students, these are the series. That is, there are two other books in the same series, and they are What Katy Did Next and What Katy Did at School. And they are all about Katy's adventures. So, this lesson that we are going to read is an extract from What Katy Did. And if you want to know more about the before and the after of the story, then you can read the books given. Students, let's understand now how Katy met with an accident so that we can understand the lesson further. Now, as you can see, Katy is very angry as she just had a very big fight with her sister Elsie. Now, let's see what happens to her. Now it's clear to you all what had happened to Katy. Now this is an extract that we are going to read about Katy and how she recovers from this accident. And when she realizes that she will be lying in bed for a long time, she is very despondent. That means disappointed. Now we'll read on to find out how she overcomes her depression, which is the first step towards regaining her health. Now that Katy knew that there was no chance of getting well at once, the days dragged dreadfully. This means that the days went on by and by. She lost heart about herself. Lost heart means became disheartened and took no interest in anything. Aunt Izzy brought her books, but she didn't want to read or to sew. Sew means, stitching or hemming, something like that. Nothing amused her. Amused means she wasn't entertained. Clover and Cecy would come and sit with her. Clover and Cecy are her cousins. But hearing them tell about their plays made her cry so miserably that Aunt Izzy wouldn't let them come often. They were very sorry for Katy, but the room was so gloomy and Katy so cross that they didn't mind much not being allowed to see her. In those days, Katy made Aunt Izzy keep the blind shut tight. This means she never bothered about her, and she lay in the dark, thinking how miserable she was. Everybody was very kind and patient with her, but she was too selfishly miserable to notice it. Aunt Izzy ran up and down stairs and was on her feet all day trying to get something which would please her, but Katy hardly said thank you and never saw how tired Aunt Izzy looked. So long as she was forced to stay in bed, Katy could not be grateful for anything than that was done. The first thing which broke in upon this sad state of affairs was a letter from Cousin Helen, which Papa brought one morning and handed to Aunt Lizzie. This time Katy was not on the steps to welcome her, but after a little while Papa brought Cousin Helen in his arms and sat her in a big chair beside the bed. It was a forlorn looking child enough which Cousin Helen saw lying before her. Forlorn means very unhappy and lonely. Katy's face had grown thin, and her eyes had red circles about them from continuous crying. Her hair had been brushed twice that morning by Aunt Izzy, but Katy had run her fingers impatiently through it till it stood out above her head like a frowsy bush. She wore a calico dressing gown. Calico is a type of plain woven cotton cloth with a printed pattern, which though clean was particularly ugly in pattern, and the room for all its tidiness had a dismal look. Dismal means not properly arranged, with the chairs set up against the wall and a row of medicine bottles on the chimney piece. Now, as Katy saw her cousin Helen, she took a long, deep breath and expressed how dreadful or how terrible she felt. Helen replied in a sympathetic way. She knows how terrible it is, and she tells Katy that she's sorry for her condition. Helen further consoles her by saying it is a hard trial, my poor darling. Cousin Helen then asked Katy if Papa, that is Katy's father, told her that he thinks she'll get well soon by and by. To this Katy replied, yes, he keeps saying so, but it will take long, long time. She further exclaims that she wanted to do so many things, but now she can't do anything. Now cousin Helen, she asks her what sort of things you want to do. To this Katy replied that she wants to study, help people, and become famous. She wants to teach the children and take care of them, as she promised her mother. She tells cousin Helen that now that she can't go to school or learn anything, and by the time she gets well, the children of the house will be already grown up and then they won't need her. On listening patiently to Katy, she smiles and then she asks her, why have you to wait till you get well? Katy replied, why, what can I do lying in bed? Cousin Helen tells her that there is a good deal, and if she was at her place right now, she would say to herself, now, Katy Carr, you wanted to go to school and learn to be wise and useful, and here's a chance for you. Listening to this, Katy asked, what is the school? She didn't know what it meant. Her cousin Helen replied with a smile, it's called the School of Pain and the place where lessons would be learnt in your room. The rules of the school are hard, but a good scholar or learner will know later how right and kind they are. Apart from the rules, the lessons also aren't easy, but as you study, it will become interesting. Well, listening to this, Katy asks with curiosity, what are the lessons? Cousin Helen tells her there's the lesson of patience, which is the hardest to study, as everything can't be learnt at the time, but every bit that's got by heart makes the next bit easier. She further tells her there's lesson of cheerfulness and the lesson of making the best of things. Katy then remarked dolefully, that is, in a sorrowful manner, that sometimes there isn't anything to make the best of. She asked cousin Helen if there are any other studies or lessons in the school. To this, cousin Helen replies, yes, there is a lesson of hopefulness, and this class has got many teachers. As for this, the sun is the one. It sits outside the window all day waiting to slip in and get at its pupils, that is, the students. The sun is the first rated teacher, and Cousin Helen told Katy that she wouldn't shut the sun out if she was her. Cousin Helen tells Katy that every morning the first thing she can do is to wake up and say to herself that she is going to get well, that is, tomorrow only. So, as today being the last day of sickness, she can spend the entire day beautifully and make her sick room so pleasant that everybody remembers it. Cousin Helen told Katy there is one more lesson, that is the lesson of neatness. And as being sick, that person should look fresh and dainty, that is, like a delicate beauty as a rose. Helen continued saying that after the room becomes pleasant, she would fetch all the lesson books and would study for a couple, that is, at least 2 hours every morning. On hearing this, Katy cried, "Oh, what?" with a wry face. Wry means an expression showing both amusement and disappointment. Seeing this, Helen smiled and said that she knows it all sounds dull, learning geography and doing sums all by ourselves. Then she motivates Katy by saying that if efforts are made, we'll be glad by and by, and not much will be lost, as one can attain much in their education. Helen further states that Katy, as you were saying that one thing you were sorry about was that you were ill and you can't do much for children, but this isn't the reason for being sorry. Katy asked with astonishment, "Why not?" "Because you can be of use, as for now you have more chance with the children than you usually have," said Helen. Katy further said sadly that she can't think what she meant, as half the time she doesn't even know where the other children are or what they are doing, and she can't chase them at this time. "But," exclaimed Cousin Helen, "you can make your room a delightful place that they'll want to come to you. A sick person is always on hand, that is always there to help, and everybody who needs you knows exactly where to come. If people love you, you naturally become the heart of the house, that is everyone's favorite." Cousin Helen added, "Once the little ones, that is your younger siblings, feel that in the entire house your room is the only place where they can come when they are tired, happy, grieved, or sorry, and you should accept them all lovingly, then the battle is won. For people cannot be trained through lectures instead of living their lives with them, and by helping them in some or the other ways, we can show it to them." Helen continued, "And when, as for now, your life is laid aside, so now it is the time to take up other people's lives, as it's not possible when we are scurrying, that is moving quickly, and bustling, that is moving in an energetic way, with our own situations." Cousin Helen concludes by saying that she didn't mean to preach a sermon. That means that she didn't want to deliver a long lecture, sort of, with moral values to her, as she thought Katy must be tired. To this, Katy quickly replied that she wasn't tired even a bit. Finally, Katy held Helen's hand tight in hers and said, "Cousin Helen, you can't think how much better I am feeling now, and I will certainly try everything as you said." So, children, now this lesson is clear to you all. Thank you and God bless.